Gary Stothard here, weekly swing tip time. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about using bounce when we're pitching and playing little shots over bunkers and how crucial it is to actually use the bounce. So bounce is the angle from the front of the club to the back of the club there, and you can see there when I'm holding the club nice and square there, there's an angle from front to the back there. So the angle on this is 8 degrees. So when I've got that club face nice and square there, there's 8 degrees of angle there. You can just see it there. There's a nice angle. Now it's absolutely key to use the bounce. What most people do when they're chipping, they don't use bounce, and what can happen is the handle gets tilted forward there, and then all that angle of bounce, that angle there, has gone. So then you end up hitting the actual shot using leading edge rather than using the bounce. Think of using bounce as almost like a skip plate. So as you're coming down, we want the sole of the club, that nice fat part of the club there, where the bounce is, to hit the ground, and then we want it to bounce, and when it bounces, that collects the ball and it lifts it into the air, not you lifting it. Same in a bunker shot, we need the bounce to help it out of the bunker. It's absolutely crucial, but most people get it wrong because when they're playing a shot, they'll come into impact and they'll lean the handle forward, and then you're taking all the bounce away, and then what you're actually doing then, you're actually trying to play the shot using the leading edge. So if you can get your head around that we're actually trying to pitch and chip and play bunker shots by not trying to use the leading edge and dig, we're actually trying to return the club back to its neutral position here and try and strike the ground using the sole of the club, and this will give us a lot more leeway. It's almost like we say, it's like a skip plate. So if you're doing it this way, where you're using the bounce properly and hitting the ground with the sole of the club rather than tilting it forward, you've got more margin for error. You can hit the ball almost an inch before it, and then it'll glide, and then it'll bounce up and lift the ball. Now if you do it that way, where we're leaning the handle forwards and trying to play it with a leading edge, there's no margin for error. If you're absolutely perfect with the strike, which probably most people are absolutely perfect every time, you can get away with it, but it's a very risky way to play the shot. Okay, I'm going to hit some shots and then I can sort of give you some ideas on how to use the bounce. So to use the bounce, so we've sort of said that we don't want to be leaning that handle forward. We don't want to be back either. So we're trying to feel like it's returning nice and straight, but we must have the weight forward. So in a dress, we need that 60% of the weight forward, but my handle doesn't need to be massively forward. So I'm going to pop the weight forward there. You can see the knees have gone across, but the shaft of the club, it might have a minimal little lean forwards, but it's not a big shaft lean forward. It's just slightly moved forward there. And I'm really trying to feel like when I come to strike, it's back in that position, not leaning. The other really big thing, this is the sort of the key thing, and when I'm giving a lot of lessons, I see this all the time, is a hooded backswing. If you're hooded on the backswing there, where the toe of the club is pointing downwards rather than up to the sky, you'll never use bounce. It's almost impossible, because what you'd have to do from that hooded position is then try to almost open it back up to use the bounce. It's almost impossible. I'm going to do one hooded, so I'm going to hood it and then play it like that. And you can see the problem is there, it hasn't got enough flight on it. It just isn't lofted up to get over the bunker. So there's no bounce helping it lift there. And you can see it ended up in the bunker. So what you should be doing, and experiment with this when you're practicing, try and feel like in the backswing that we're fanning the face open. So try to just take it away and just lay that face just slightly open there. You're activating the bounce and you're activating the skip plate. So we'll play this one now. So we're going to feel like we're twisted it open. I could hear the sound, totally different sound straight away. The club, I could almost feel it wanting to bounce. I didn't try and lift it, and it popped it up over the bunker. Far superior golf shot. So we'll just show it from this angle this time, so we can see Don't want to be leaning that handle forwards. You can keep the ball central. You can have it slightly back if you want, but don't lean that handle forwards. And try and get your head around that we're trying to deliver it like that, not there, and not trying to lift it. And we're trying to really hit the ball using the sole of the club, not the leading edge. That's what you got to get your head around. Use the bounce, use the skip plate. And I would almost think about trying to hit, you know, an inch before that ball, but really try and set the wrist on the backswing, try to open the face up. Don't shut it down. If we shut it down there where that club face is pointing down, you can't use bounce, and that club just digs. Right, so we'll have another go, and we'll try and fan it open. You can hear the sound there. The bounce lifted it up. It was a good strike because we're using the bounce correctly. I almost felt like I slid it about an inch before it, and then it just lifted it for me. So the real key here is to try and hit the ground using the sole of the club, not the leading edge. Use the sole is using bounce, and that's the same for pitching and our class of pitch shot, you know, up to 60, 70 yards and inwards. Use the bounce. Don't get into the habit of trying to dig that leading edge into the ground before the ball, because we know what happens. It catches the ground first and it doesn't come back up. It just stays into the ground and you get that heavy shot, which we don't want. Hope those tips are useful. We'll see you soon. Thank you.